My best friend lived in my guest room for 3 months before I found out she was also sleeping with my husband. And when the two of them finally sat me down to sign my own life away, she held his hand across the table and told me gently that it was time to let him go. She had no idea what I'd already found, or who was already on his way to that coffee shop to stop her. Subscribe now, because by the time this story ends, the woman begging for mercy is not going to be me. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 35. And 4 years into my marriage, I learned that the two people I trusted most had been quietly taking everything I owned, one small theft at a time. Coffee shop sat on the second floor, glass walls looking down over Michigan Avenue, traffic nodding up under a low October sun. The espresso machine hissed behind the counter. Across from me sat my husband, Nathan. Beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched, sat Brooke, my best friend since we were 7 years old. Papers in front of me still smelled faintly of toner. Everything divided in flat, efficient language. The Gold Coast apartment, the SUV we'd financed the year before, what was left in our joint account, even the furniture we'd picked out together on a Saturday I used to think was one of the good ones. All that was missing was my signature. Just sign it, Emily. Nathan's voice had the flat patience of a man closing out a return at customer service. In 4 years I'd heard him irritated, tender, cold, never quite like this. Brooke leaned in, her voice pitched soft enough that a stranger might have mistaken it for sympathy. You can't hold on to something that's already gone. What Nathan and I have, it's real, Em. I'm not going to apologize for that. I looked at her face. The same face that had cried into my shoulder the week my father went into the hospital. And I understood for the first time that I wasn't looking at my friend anymore. I was looking at a woman working very hard to look sorry while something like triumph kept leaking through around the edges. A few tables over, a spoon clinked against a mug. Nobody was staring, but I could feel every ear in that cafe angled our way. Nathan drummed 2 fingers against the table. The split is fair. I'm not letting you walk out with nothing, but making a scene isn't going to change the outcome. I looked down at the papers one more time. My hands were ice. My head, strangely, was not. That clarity hadn't shown up that morning. It had been building for 2 weeks, since the day I came home to an empty apartment and heard something through a door that wasn't quite closed. I'm not signing this, I said. Nathan's face went from pale to something harder. Emily, don't push this. Brooke's hand tightened on his wrist. Think it through. Holding on to someone who's already left will only hurt you both. I laughed, one short, dry sound that surprised even me. That's the line you're going with? Stop talking around it, Nathan snapped. I've made my decision. I know you have, I said, holding his eyes. That's exactly why I'm not signing. He sat back, waiting for me to fall apart the way he clearly expected. Tears, pleading, some appeal to the last 4 years. I reached into my purse instead and pulled out my phone. His eyebrows pulled together. Who are you calling? I didn't answer. The line picked up on the second ring, a calm, even voice. Go ahead. Marcus, I said, watching both their faces. I need you to come to the cafe on Michigan. I've decided to move forward with the divorce. But from here on, I'm the one setting the terms. Brooke's hand went rigid on Nathan's arm. I set the phone down and took a slow sip of water, feeling something steady and cold settle behind my ribs. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been the one calling Marcus for the very first time, the day everything I thought I understood about my marriage came apart in about 90 seconds. 3 months before that afternoon in the cafe, Brooke showed up at my door dragging a cream-colored suitcase, mascara running, telling me she'd just broken up with her boyfriend and had nowhere to stay. I didn't think twice. I helped her haul the suitcase inside. Stay as long as you need, I told her. That's what friends do. 3 months later, she was sitting across from me touching my husband's sleeve like she'd been doing it for years. 2 weeks before the cafe, that's when the floor actually dropped out. Nathan had a 3-day trip to Denver planned, bag packed the night before. I left for work like any other Wednesday. What he didn't know was that my morning meeting had been canceled the night before, and I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. I thought I'd surprise him, swing back, grab groceries, cook something nice for when he got home. If I'd called ahead, maybe none of what came next would have happened. At the very least, I wouldn't have heard the exact words that woke me up out of 4 years of assuming the best. I let myself in quietly. The apartment was empty except for the bedroom, door open a few inches, and a woman's laugh drifting out, then Nathan's voice, then Brooks. Fragments, but clear enough. Boring. Only cares about work. Trusts everyone too easily. A bridge to walk across. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't cry out. I stood in the hallway and let every word land. Then I went downstairs, sat on a bench outside the building, and stayed there for 3 hours. A maple leaf landed on the toe of my shoe, and I stared at it like it might explain something. Around noon, I called Marcus Whitfield, a corporate attorney my firm had worked with for years. To most people, I was just a senior program manager in biotech. To Marcus, I was someone asking him quietly to look into a few things: our joint account activity, the paperwork on the SUV Nathan drove, and the ownership records on our apartment. 3 days later, Marcus handed me a folder thicker than I expected. I sat at my desk turning pages, feeling my hands go cold one line at a time. Our joint savings had been bled out in small, careful withdrawals. $58,300 over 7 months, most of it routed into an account in Nathan's name alone. The SUV wasn't a company lease like he'd told me. He'd financed it, and the $24,750 down payment had come straight out of our joint funds. And over 6 months, there had been recurring transfers to a woman's name, Brooks, totaling $31,400. The memo line alternated between help, loan, and nothing at all. That wasn't the worst of it. The apartment, the one Nathan had spent years calling ours at dinner parties, was legally mine alone. My parents had gifted the down payment before the wedding. Every mortgage payment had come from my personal account. Nathan had walked a check to the bank maybe 3 times in 4 years and let the story rewrite itself from there. I'd never kept score. I thought that's what you did in a real partnership, you didn't itemize. Now I understood. Some people don't need you to keep score because they're quietly keeping it for you. And that folder wasn't even the worst thing Marcus found. If you think this is just a story about a cheating husband, stay with me, because the money and the apartment weren't the part that ended his career. Emily. Nathan's voice pulled me back into the cafe, back to the present, back to the papers between us. I'm asking you one more time. What exactly are you planning to do? I laced my fingers together so they wouldn't shake. That's a question I should be asking you too. Cafe door opened. A man in his 40s in a crisp white shirt walked in, briefcase in hand, a young associate trailing behind him with a folder. Marcus Whitfield crossed the room, nodded once at me, and pulled out a chair. Apologies, 5 minutes late, he said. You're right on time, I told him. Nathan's eyes moved between us, unease creeping into his expression for the first time. Marcus opened a slim, color-tabbed folder. Ms. Carter, before we begin, confirming for the record, I'm here representing your interests in the divorce and asset review. Correct, I said. He turned to Nathan, polite but direct. I'm Marcus Whitfield, counsel for Ms. Carter. If this divorce is proceeding, I'd suggest we keep the conversation to documents and figures. It'll save everyone time. Nathan let out a short, humorless laugh. You really came prepared, Emily. If I hadn't, I said, I'd already have signed away things that were never yours to divide. Brooke shifted, her voice syrupy as ever. Nathan just wants this handled amicably. I turned to her. You've been living in my apartment, spending money out of my marriage. And you want to talk to me about amicable? Her face flushed, but she recovered fast, slipping back into the wounded voice. If you want to be angry at me, fine. But don't talk to me about feelings. If this were really about feelings, I said, you wouldn't have needed to do it behind my back for 3 months. Marcus laid the first document on the table. The Gold Coast apartment is deeded solely to Ms. Carter. The down payment came from her parents' account directly into hers. Every mortgage payment traces back to her personal account. Married people share money, Nathan snapped. Funds acquired during a marriage can be complicated, Marcus said evenly, but assets with clear separate origin generally aren't. This one's well documented. Nathan turned on me. You hid this from me. You lived there 4 years and never once asked whose name was on the deed, I said. Now it's my fault you didn't ask? Marcus set down the next page. The SUV is titled to Nathan. The $24,750 down payment came from the joint account. Ms. Carter never signed off on converting a shared asset into a private one. Brooke jumped in. There's a misunderstanding. He uses it for work. You're not a party to this conversation, Marcus said, not unkindly, but with a finality that shut her down instantly. Her hands twisted in her lap. The bright red polish on her nails suddenly looked garish under the cafe lights. Nathan exhaled hard. Fine. The savings are joint. Review it. We intend to, Marcus said. Over 7 months, $58,300 moved out of the joint account. A significant portion went to a personal account and from there to a third party. Nobody had to say Brooke's name. Her face went white. Nathan slammed his palm flat on the table, rattling the water glasses. I loaned a friend money. That's it. A friend, I repeated slowly, who needed my husband to quietly wire her thousands of dollars. A friend who's been living in my apartment, wearing my clothes, sleeping with my husband. I held his eyes. Keep going. I'm listening. Tafe had gone almost silent around us. I'd already survived the worst shame of my life standing outside my own bedroom door 2 weeks earlier. A few strangers' stares didn't touch me anymore. Brooke's composure cracked. Please, not in public, Emily. I know I did something wrong, but we never meant to hurt you like this. I looked at her for a long moment. From the second you walked in with that suitcase, this was already happening. I was just the last one to figure it out. Marcus closed the folder. I'll say this plainly, Nathan. If both parties negotiate in good faith, this stays simple. If you continue omitting assets or misrepresenting transfers, Ms. Carter is entitled to request a full forensic audit into every transaction made during this marriage. Is that a threat? Nathan asked. It's a fact, Marcus said. I could see Nathan's throat move as he swallowed. He wasn't afraid of losing me. That fear had died a while ago. He was afraid of losing money, status, control of the story. And there was a part of the folder Marcus hadn't opened yet, the part about Nathan's job, and the offer he was quietly chasing at a rival firm using our company's own client files. I hadn't told Marcus to hold that back for drama. I told him to hold it back because some cards you don't show until the other side thinks they've already seen everything. Nathan's voice dropped, suddenly softer. Emily, let's just go back to the apartment and talk. There's no reason to do this here. I felt only exhaustion at that. When he and Brooke drew up papers meant to force my signature, privacy hadn't crossed his mind. When he drained our savings, he hadn't been thinking about a quiet conversation. Only now, realizing I wasn't going to sit still, did he suddenly remember the word marriage. There's nothing left to say in private, I told him. Marcus slid the original draft back across the table. Keep this copy if you'd like, but it no longer has negotiating value. You'll receive a revised proposal within the week. Full asset inventory, reconciled amounts, and specific terms. I'd read it closely. Nathan didn't touch the papers. Brooke didn't dare touch his shoulder. I stood. Nathan. I looked down at the man who, for 4 years, I'd trusted without question. This is only the beginning. Everything you took through deception, I'm taking back piece by piece. And what you owe me for the rest of it, you won't finish paying in this lifetime. I turned and walked toward the stairs. Behind me, a chair scraped and Brooke called his name, soft and panicked. I didn't look back. Some things, once dead, are better left unexamined. Outside, the evening air was sharp and clean. Marcus waited beside me under a maple tree without rushing me. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm getting there," I said. Then, "This isn't going to end with a division of assets, Marcus. There's something about his job. I'll show you tonight." That night, Marcus took me to his office on the 7th floor of an older building near the lake. He made tea, sat across from me, and waited without pressing. I pulled a small flash drive from my purse, one I'd been carrying for 2 weeks, ever since I first stumbled across it while looking for an old contract on Nathan's laptop. I hadn't wanted to open it because once I saw what was on it, there'd be no closing that door again. Marcus plugged it in. Spreadsheets. PDFs. His expression shifted from neutral to grave in about 10 minutes. "Are you certain these are Nathan's files?" he asked. "Positive. It's his account, his work email." "If this is accurate," he said slowly, "this isn't just a marital dispute anymore. There are indications he's been transferring internal project data, budgets, client rosters, proprietary information, to a competing firm. I'd suspected it. Hearing it confirmed still hurt in a fresh way. I've worked at that company 9 years, Marcus. I started as an analyst. I've treated every project like it belonged to me. And he used exactly that to buy himself a new job somewhere else." "What do you want to do?" he asked. I stood at the window, watching headlights stream down Michigan Avenue. If it were just the affair, I could sign, split things, take the one-time hit and move on. But this isn't private anymore. If I stay quiet, the people who trust me, my team, pay for it. "If that's your decision," Marcus said, "I'll help you prepare everything. But understand, once this surfaces, it doesn't stop at a warning. There will be an internal audit and likely legal exposure for him." "I understand," I said. "I accept that." That night, I went home alone. The apartment was dark, silent, and strange. Nathan's jacket still draped over a chair like nothing had changed, but the feeling of home was simply gone. I pulled a suitcase from the closet, not to leave, but to pack away what no longer belonged to me. I folded his clothes one piece at a time, the way my mother used to fold laundry when something in our house had gone wrong and she needed her hands busy more than she needed to talk about it. When it was full, I zipped it shut and set it against the wall. I didn't cry that night. I lay awake with one thought turning over and over. It was truly over. But an ending isn't a finale. Tomorrow I'd walk into my company, not as a betrayed wife, but as someone protecting 9 years of work. Tomorrow I was going to hand a flash drive to 3 executives and watch a man's career end in real time. If you want to see that room, subscribe now because it's coming up next. I dressed carefully the next morning, hair back, minimal makeup, and left Nathan's packed suitcase against the entryway wall, exactly where he'd see it first. At 8:15, I walked into the executive suite on the 12th floor. Gary Holloway, VP of Operations, sat with Diane Foster, General Counsel, and Tom Reyes, VP of Projects. "Emily, is something wrong?" Gary asked. I set my purse down. "I need to report a security concern involving one of our projects." I placed the flash drive on the table. "I believe there's been an external data leak. The employee involved is Nathan Reeves." The room went still. Diane plugged in the drive, scanning files, her expression sliding from doubt to alarm. "Are you certain this came from our internal servers?" she asked. "I managed that project myself. I recognize every file." Tom leaned forward. "If this is accurate, we're not talking about a policy violation. This is corporate espionage." Gary studied me for a long moment. "Emily, be honest. Do you have any involvement in this?" I understood the question. In a breach this size, the person closest to the data is always the first name on the list. "No. I came here specifically so there'd be no confusion about that." He nodded slowly. "I believe you." Just that. but it steadied something in me I hadn't realized was still shaking. Diane closed her laptop. I recommend we revoke his access immediately and open a full forensic audit. Do it quietly, Gary said. Then, to me, anything related to this project comes to me directly from now on. No one else. Around midday, our IT security contractor, Jordan Pierce, requested a meeting with Diane and asked that I sit in, since the files had come through me. Jordan had spent the morning digging deeper into Nathan's deleted folders, the ones he'd assumed were gone for good. He didn't just take current files, Jordan said, sliding a printout across the table. There's a planning document dated over a year ago. He'd been quietly courting the rival firm long before any of this became public. The affair, the divorce, none of that derailed his plan. If anything, it was already baked in. I sat with that for a moment. A year. Longer than I'd known about Brooke. Longer than the marriage had felt like it was cracking. He hadn't stumbled into betrayal. He'd been building an exit for longer than I wanted to imagine. If that hit you the way it hit me sitting in that room, smash that like button right now, because this is the moment everything he built quietly falls apart. Thank you, Jordan, I said quietly. That helps more than you know. Jordan nodded and left the file behind. One more piece nobody could argue away later. By noon, Nathan had emailed, "We need to talk." I didn't answer. When he called at lunch, I let it ring nearly out before picking up. What the hell did you do? His voice had none of the composure from the cafe. My job, I said. You have no idea what you're doing. I have a very clear idea, I said. Do you have any idea what you did? Silence, then his voice dropped. One thing is one thing. Work is work. You don't mix them. I almost laughed. You mixed them first, Nathan. You used company data to buy yourself a better title. Are you trying to ruin me? I'm not ruining anyone, I said. I just stopped covering for you. I'm coming by the apartment tonight, he said. We need to talk. No need, I told him. Come get your things. They're already packed. I hung up and set the phone face down, looking out over the skyline. It wasn't easy. It wasn't light. But it was the only road that led anywhere close to myself. That evening I made dinner, salmon, a simple salad. Not because I still wanted to take care of anyone, but because I needed the motion of ordinary life to keep from falling into the silence. The lock turned. Nathan stepped inside, scanned the apartment, and landed on the suitcase against the wall. You actually did it, he said. You can see that I did. He looked worn in a way the suit hadn't hidden before. The company's investigating me. You didn't have to take it this far. I didn't do anything, I said. I stopped hiding it. Can we talk? His voice had shifted, quieter, pleading. I know I messed up with Brooke. I'm not asking you to forgive that. But could you help me with the work thing? Just say it was a mix-up with files. It'll go so much easier for me. Something in me settled into pity rather than rage. You're asking me to cover up corporate espionage. I just need time. If this goes public, I lose everything. So you want to keep what you stole and hand me the fallout. He took a step closer. Despite everything, we were married, Emily. I don't want this to be unfixable. I looked at him and saw no remorse, only panic for his own future. It became unfixable before you even noticed, I said. I handed him Marcus's new draft. He flipped through it, his face darkening with every page. The apartment stayed mine, the SUV deposit had to be returned, every transfer to Brooke accounted for. You're asking for more than what's fair, he said. I'm not asking for anything that isn't documented, I replied. I'm just stopping you from taking anything else. He asked quietly if I still hated Brooke. No, I said. She just doesn't factor into my life anymore. When he finally picked up the suitcase and reached the door, he paused. If you ever need anything, he said, not turning around. I don't, I said. The door closed. The deadbolt clicked. It sounded like the final period on a very long sentence. 3 days later, Nathan sat across from me and Marcus at the firm, visibly worn down, the fight gone from his eyes. "I need more time," he said. "At least a week." "You've had time since the day I handed you the draft," I said. 3 days isn't enough." "It's enough," I said. "You've been moving your finances for months already." That landed. He knew I knew. "Fine," he said finally. 3 days. Before he left, he asked one more question. "If none of this had happened, do you think we'd have made it?" "No," I said. "Why?" "Because this wasn't an accident, Nathan. It was rot that was already there." He left without another word. 3 days later, we signed. The room was quiet in the way rooms are after a storm has fully passed. Nathan's hand hesitated for half a second over the line, a tremor I almost missed, then he signed. "I'm sorry," he said. Not the panicked apology from before. Slow. Final. "I heard you," I said. But nothing more. I signed my name. My handwriting hadn't changed. The woman holding the pen had. A week later, Brooke texted asking to meet. The same cafe, the same window over Michigan Avenue. "I'm not going to forgive you," I told her, "but I don't want to carry this every time I might run into you in this city." She cried. She told me it started small, that Nathan complained about me constantly, that she felt sorry for him. "You couldn't stop," I said, "or you didn't want to?" She had no answer. I told her Nathan had asked me to cover up his corporate theft. She went pale, genuinely stunned. "I didn't know," she said. "I believe you," I told her. "If you had, you wouldn't be sitting here asking." I stood to leave. "Truly, I'm so sorry, Emily," she said. "I heard you," I said. "Keep the rest for yourself." That night I called my mother, Linda, and told her the short version. She didn't scold, didn't dramatize. Just, "Are you okay?" And then, "Come home for a few days if you need to." I did eventually. And months later, watching the skyline from my own apartment, the one that had always, legally and otherwise, been mine, I understood something I hadn't before. Brooke hadn't taken my husband from me. She'd taken a man who, in every way that mattered, had already stopped being mine to lose. What I'd kept wasn't the apartment or the settlement or even my job. It was myself, the version of me that knew exactly when to stop absorbing damage and start building a case instead. If this story hit you the way it hit me writing it down, hit like and tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to go quiet and build your case before you said a single word out loud? I want to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next one.